Hi, this is Ash Alder with the Wizard's Respite. We are listening to Sanctorum, the show where we deep dive into all things TTRPG. As always, I'm here with Zachariah with Old Man Gaming. And today we have a special guest, Steph from TTRPG Kids. Why don't you say hi, guys?
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Hi. You guys know me. You don't need to. The people out there are used to me, and they're like, we don't care about him. Talking to guests.
Yeah, this is really exciting for us. You are our first guest on our show. So first off, thank you for jumping in. We're honored to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you for jumping in with us. It's really great to get you in here. You and I started talking about a month or two-ish ago. When I wrote an article on the family-friendly genre from the TTRPG industry, like people trying to get into writing TTRPGs and the family-friendly genre being a good place to start. And you were so kind then to help me with that article and give me a lot of good insights into, because I am not a writer in that area. I was looking at numbers and how those books were selling. You helped me out with really understanding what that genre is all about.
Yeah, happy to help. So.
and now you're doing it again.
She's definitely helping us. It is not the other way around at all whatsoever. They are definitely helping us.
Everybody gets better when we share our XP. So yeah.
That's a great way of putting it. Sharing XP. I'm gonna definitely remember that one for the future. I have so many things I want to pick your brain about. But the first thing I want to really ask you about is TTRPG Kids. It's a great website. It's full of articles that are very much geared towards all about playing these games with kids. Teachers can use it. Family, obviously, parents can use it. So how did you get involved with that? How did you start this thing?
So, like many people who have recently got into kind of the indie TTRPG creator space during COVID, there was a bit of a job shakeup happen. So I was a crash test engineer, and I was about 6-8 months into COVID. I was trying to review crash tests remotely while also having a toddler at home who decided that he wasn't going to nap anymore and was only going to sleep 7 hours of night, pretty consistently. So it wasn't really working out. And so I ended up leaving my job. And then, I was like, okay, we're going to take a break for a little bit, figure things out. We're adjusting. And during that time, I started seeing other people online playing tabletop RPGs with their kids. And I was like, he's a little young, but let's try it out. He's not getting social interaction with other kids right now. So this could be a good way to help with that social emotional learning through role play activities and whatnot. And so I started doing that with him, and it was working really well. But in my research for that, I also noticed that there was not really one central location for the information. A lot of websites had maybe one or two articles that focused on TTRPGs for kids, or there would be a forum with many conflicting views about it, not a lot of cited resources. It was people stating their opinions, and it wasn't always rooted in experience or research. And so engineer brain kind of stayed up all night one night and was like, okay, this is how we organize all the information. And was chatting with a few people. They're like, we could really use a website. It's really easy to make a website. And I kind of jumped into that. And so it was sort of during COVID, needed that outlet to work on something, and be able to organize the data and look at it. And it was also like a fun activity to do with my kid. At this point, we have played almost 100 tabletop RPGs together and tried out different mechanics and stories and everything. And so it's been really fun to do with him. And then also like something that I feel is really helping the community, because now there's this like central location to kind of find everything, and you can kind of like branch out from it. So
yeah. So your kid, 100 games, like you guys, he didn't get squirreled down one and didn't want to break off. He likes playing all of them.
Yeah, it's about every 2 weeks we'll try out a new one. Like I space it out so that way I'm not throwing too many mechanics at him. They are all ones that are geared towards younger kids. So when we first started out, it was some had no dice, or it was more like a storytelling game. And then it was like, oh, let's introduce 1d6. And then it was like, okay, now we have 2d6. And now we have ones that, go up to a d10. And so it sort of like gradually introduced him to more and more complex mechanics.
Okay. And it sounds like he's still loving it quite a bit.
Oh yeah. Today, he actually made his own game today. It was pretty random and disjointed. It was a haunted house, and he got a bunch of pieces of paper and drew out different maps and like different characters that were his boss fights. And then he was having to roll for him, but he's like, roll the dice. No, you have to roll it on top of the paper. And he's like, it has to land on it. And so like it lands on the head, so then it's gonna like damage the head. He's like, okay, roll. No, you can't use that dice. You have to use this other one. And like, there was no rules. It was just me following the lead. And I'm like, it was a pretty random story, but it was amazing. And he's like, okay, we're going to work on it and we're going to publish it. And so he was like repeating some of my words from like other times when I'd play games with him. It was amazing. So he's super into it now. So, he has been from the beginning, but like,
I'm jealous.
Yeah, that sounds adorable.
It was.
Wow. So he's going to be the next big thing in TTRPGs. He's got the skills for writing these things all the way. You said he was getting into kindergarten right now?
Yeah, he's starting kindergarten in like a week and a half. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
That is, that's impressive.
That is something else.
I have a 7-year-old daughter who I've tried to play TTRPGs with multiple times. She did try to create an RPG once, but she won't let you make a character. And I'm like, that's really the point of it. You have to let them make a character.
Like one of the fun parts, yeah.
I do want to say I feel your pain. The day she stopped taking a nap was like.
Oh gosh.
I was like, oh no, you're not gonna do this anymore. Oh, this like it's like the third day in a row that you realize, oh, they're just awake now. Oh no.
Yeah. 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Of like time there.
Yeah.
Like it's the lunch break for a parent.
It really is. Yes.
And so that was just gone, and then he doesn't sleep a whole lot at night. Like it is 8 o'clock right now. He's doing quiet playtime because that is our solution to his sleep schedule. So, it's fun.
Yeah, my daughter's very much the same. She took really good naps for the longest time, and I was a stay-at-home dad for a while, so that was like okay, get to play some video games or something, and then all of a sudden she stopped doing it. I was like, oh no, that time is just gone now. Oh no. Yeah.
Sadly, I am what children, so all I got are my puppies, and I cannot teach them to play TTRPGs for anything. Not that I've tried.
That would be impressive. That would be impressive.
Someone has a game called a book or something called How to Play Tabletop RPGs with Your Cat. pretty sure they could adapt that to playing tabletop RPGs with a dog. I don't know how it works. That's one I really want to review. But like,
that one needs a review. Someone needs to check into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that might be a future Spectorum deep dive here.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one yet. That's awesome. All right, Steph. So, that's how you started getting involved with TTRPG, the TTRPG Kids. How did you get involved with TTRPGs in general? You know, like when you what was your first game that you jumped into? Was it the classic Dungeons and Dragons sort of like introduction, or how did you get involved with this in the beginning?
So the first game that I ever played was basically a one-shot. So my husband was playing with his friends from work, and it was a good friend of ours, Dave, set up this like mini campaign for the group of work friends. And they were getting like super into it. My husband's coming home with like stories of like, oh, my character did this, and he's like doing this and that and the other thing, and he like had this really wild character that was just like raised by goblins but was a human, and then was like faking to be a goblin and like all this other stuff. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. I'm like, oh, I want to play it so bad. And so then they invited me for their final session of like the mini campaign. And I absolutely loved it. I made this character was basically Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn.
Such a good game.
And
such a good
game. And I didn't even I hadn't played the game yet, so I didn't register, but it was basically that was the character I ended up making, was something like that. And I loved it. It was like 6 hours of this amazing game. We went till midnight. It was great. But then it was over, and
oh no.
Everyone was kind of out of time, and so we, adult life happens, and we kind of forgot about it for a while. 6 years later, my brother introduced me to Critical Role. And I got me hooked. I got my cousin hooked. We were all like, oh, we want to play D&D now. And so we didn't have a GM that we knew, and so I was like, well, I'll GM. I dove in
oh no.
Oh gosh. First campaign was totally homebrewed, and we had 7 players because so many people wanted to join, and it was absolute chaos, and it was amazing. And so that was what got me hooked on it, was that first game. And then after that it kind of Critical Role came along, and I'd already known from that previous game what it was, so I was super into it. And then ended up becoming the group's GM. So I forever GM role.
I was about to say. Yeah. I wish I knew you back then, because I would have been like, don't agree to be the GM. You'll never be able to get out of that. Yeah. You're going to be that for the rest of your life. That's it.
It puts a tattoo on your soul. Everybody can
it brands you. Yeah. If you meet other gamers, they just know. They just... Oh, that's a GM. So, GM enemy. Yeah. GM enemy.
Yeah.
GM experience.
Yep.
Get that guy to run something. Yeah.
And now you're jumping into 100 games with your kid.
Yeah.
And so how did you make that first transition from D&D to TTRPG at large?
Yep.
This is always kind of interesting to me to hear.
Yeah. There was 3 people on TTRPG Twitter. Redworm, the Miranda from World of Chord, and Daddy Rolled a 1. We're all playing tabletop RPGs with their kids and kind of talking about it in different formats. So maybe some were more on social media, maybe on a blog or so. And it was kind of like TTRPG Parent Squad on Twitter, and I was kind of tagging myself along in there and following what they were doing and stuff, and I was like, I'm seeing what they're doing, and kind of seeing how I could link this into what I was doing with my kid, and taking a lot of their tips and strategies, because they were really solid and had practical experience introducing these to their kids. They were willing to answer questions, and it was awesome. And they pretty much like helped me create the plan or structure that I wanted to start out with my kid. Whether, you know, it was kind of like I was asking for bits of advice and like kind of use their knowledge to put together, you know, my particular kid's situation.
Yeah.
And then found some really rules light, more story based games. There is the first one was No Mice, No Meowsters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so you play as like a mischievous cat who is trying to just cause mischief for the human that they're associated with. And my kid loves our cat, so it was perfect. And it's just like chaos. Like your mission is to like sneak out of the house or to like steal food from the refrigerator or something like that. And so and not get caught. And so it was a lot of fun. And that
I
was
could
kind
see
of
a
our
kid
intro.
loving that.
Yes, yeah. There was that. There was like Hero Kids. We tried out a few different like styles in the beginning and kind of started honing in on like where his mechanics capability level was, where we had to adjust, and then it became like a lot easier after about like the first 3 or 4 games to really smoothly go from like one game to the next because I could see what his level or capacity was. So
Okay. And that kind of makes me think, like, I was going to ask you, you know, what would you think would be a good introduction game for
mm-hmm.
a parent trying to introduce this to their kids? But it kind of also seems like it really depends on a wide range of factors, right?
Yes,
Like how old the kid
yeah.
is, you know, where they are. Um, so would you say that parents would be best served by just throwing as many TTRPGs at him and seeing which one sticks, basically, like which one they end up liking?
A little bit. So I have a couple different strategies that I recommend. Um, like there's a, I actually have a guide about making or like picking a tabletop RPG for your particular kid, like this, the title of it, that goes through choosing like the setting, which is really important for hooking kids. Like it's got to be, a lot of kids don't actually like the medieval setting. Some of them do, and it's great, but others really want to do superheroes or
Mm.
like Monster High is one that comes up sometimes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
My Little Pony is another one. Octonauts and stuff like that. Like it all like depends on the media that they're consuming and like what they're interested in and what kind of books they like. And so that's like a big aspect of it. And then there's also part of like picking mechanics is like really specific to age and math and reading level. So doing that initial research can really help. Um, if your kid is able to like really fluidly work on like math mechanics and they can add and subtract and do addition with, you know, numbers higher than 10, so you know more than single digits, then
Mm-hmm.
something like D&D or like a parsed down version of D&D is totally possible. But like if they're still learning to count, that might be kind of difficult. Like you're going to be having
Sure.
to help them out quite a bit. So doing that research to see what other ones are out there can be really helpful. I've got a list on the TTRPG Kids site that's trying to help with that a little bit.
Cool.
So it's got games rated by age, and then it says what mechanic system they have, like if it uses a D20, a D10, D4s, and so on to kind of help a little bit with that. So
Get that idea
yeah.
together. That's really interesting about the setting playing such a role. I hadn't really thought
Mm-hmm.
about that. But yeah, like if you can gear it towards something that they're already interested in, like you said, My
Yep.
Little Ponies or whatnot, that would definitely help in getting their excited, you know,
Yeah.
their excitement up.
Yeah.
Cool, very cool. Let's see. So you've been at this for a minute. You've been helping a lot of parents learn about these types of things. How have you seen this side of the hobby change and grow over the last few years? I think probably since COVID, really,
Mm-hmm.
since so many people are starting to get more involved with this hobby since COVID. How have you
Yeah.
seen this sort of change? What changes on the family side have you seen?
I have seen a lot more families bringing it into their homes is the first one. I think there's a couple factors with that. One is the adults who were playing like D&D or Pathfinder and other tabletop RPGs couldn't meet in person with their friend groups, and so they're like, well, I have children in my house. Welcome to the table. So
I have thought that so many times. I'm like, please, like games, please, so I can just play whatever I want.
Yeah. So I feel like that was one big factor. And the other big factor is people who did see in themselves or with their adult like friends how tabletop RPGs have helped from a social emotional standpoint, have said, okay, well, my kid is not having the same type of interaction as they would if they were not in like shutdown. So let's use this as a tool. And I did see like a huge pocket of that kind of forming up. And that was where like I kind of sat as well, was, you know, using it as a tool for my kid. But what I've also seen is because education got a little bit of a shakeup with COVID and everything going from like in person to virtual for quite some time, and a lot of people looking at alternative ways of teaching and reevaluating like certain aspects of like their teaching methods. I've seen a lot more people look at using tabletop RPGs for educational purposes, either as an extracurricular activity or inside the classroom. So I've been getting, that one's more recent, maybe in the past year and a half. There's been a huge influx in questions and like teachers messaging me about educational tabletop RPGs that wasn't there in the very beginning.
Interesting. Are there any particular games that you've noticed teachers lean towards when trying to select games for the classroom?
A lot of people will initially pick Dungeons and Dragons because it is well known. It's easier to pitch when people are familiar with the name, but then there's others that have been made for classrooms and after school programs. So there's Luck of Legends is quickly becoming like the educational TTRPG guy, and he has like some modules, one that's like a classroom guide, even called Luna Uni, that's out there. And so I've been seeing like groups of people gravitating towards that one. And it is good. It's a game and also an educational guide all in one. And then there's others where people are taking a lot more rules-light games and then adapting them. So they're kind of using the mechanics as a system or like as a base for the game, and then adding their own stories that relate to their material. There's a lot of creativity for the teachers and also the students with that method, because you can take any mechanics that you want. And that's kind of my recommendation a lot of times is there's a couple of pre-made options like Luna Uni, but if you want to build it from scratch, pick like a really rules light system, like just rolling a d6 or something, and then build a story and just use the mechanics to facilitate that story. So
okay.
Out of curiosity, what would you recommend for a classroom, like in your personal opinion?
Luna Uni would be my number one recommendation, just because it is like the full tabletop RPG kind of package. Other than that, Arithmagine is a good one for teaching math. That one is actually also by Luck of Legends. If you're doing language-based, there's Inspirals uses sign language as the spellcasting mechanic, and I could easily see that being adapted to teaching foreign languages as well.
That's cool.
That's a really cool idea. Kind of, that is a really cool idea.
Yeah. So it's in order to cast the spell, you have to sign it. But then I could also see that being converted into you have to speak in
Spanish,
the language that you're practicing. Yeah. So that one's like already set up very well for that. There's a lot of like really specific ones. It depends on the subject. If you're getting into geology, history, music, different
Even music.
subjects have different ones. So.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't. I never actually. I figured, math would be an obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We call them, tiny math rocks for a reason.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I never thought language. But that's such a clever idea. Like, I kind of want to take a TTRPG Spanish class now.
I know. Like, I have this video game that I was using to learn kanji, and I was like, "You could make a tabletop RPG out of this so easy." Like people use Duolingo, and like it's kind of like mildly like game-ish, like language practice.
Yeah.
You can easily make that into a tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Oh,
there's a lot of ways. Yeah.
That's really cool. Wow. So okay. There's a lot of like things that parents and teachers can get out of TTRPGs with their children. It can really help children. What would you say would be some pitfalls or areas that you would warn parents or teachers about before getting involved with this kind of thing?
Decision paralysis or like aiming for perfection is one. The other one is, I would say, flexibility is really important because kids bring a lot of chaos into the game. So for the first one, I've seen a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I have been a teacher. I've been thinking about using tabletop RPGs with my classroom for the past 6 years, but I've never really been able to figure out like the plan for it, or I've been working on this campaign for so long because I want to make it perfect, but I haven't ever been able to actually run it." And that like almost like decision paralysis, or that aim or that picture of perfection, I think gets in the way a lot of times. And the game will not be perfect. When you're playing with adults, it's not going to be perfect. Yeah. When you're playing with kids, they are a lot more creative than the adult making the game, and they will, whatever plot lines you have, they will find a very creative way to get things off the rails. So go in with a rough plan. It doesn't have to be perfect, and understand that you will probably need to be flexible in a lot of ways with helping kids to learn mechanics, understanding that they're not going to come in with probably all of their spells memorized. Like my kid at max can remember like 3 things in the game, like 5. That's about my expectation. I don't expect him to come in remembering even like 5 or 6 spells. Making sure that you are adapting to their needs. So if you see that they need to learn spells, or they have to keep track of their inventory and they're having difficulty with it, instead of saying, well, you need to track this, give them a tool for that, like flashcards or sticky notes that have everything written on it. Or if they're having a hard time with following along and finding things on the character sheet, switch to a picture-based character sheet. So that way they're not having to struggle to try and read. You can have the word and the picture next to each other, so they're still learning to read, but like give them some kind of tool to help them, and understand that whatever plot lines you have, they will probably get a little wild with it. So we've had some fun. Yes.
I always say
would be through the roof. So
game mastering is not rock and roll, it's jazz, as much as I hate to say it. That's what it is with adults. It's gonna be it's gonna be worse with kids.
Yeah. With kids, it's like the theme song to one of their TV shows. It's just all over the place. Like, yeah.
The song you hear when your eyelids shut at night. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, the earworm song.
I can imagine that would be pretty hectic. I'll be honest. That advice is good advice for just a new DM or GM.
A lot of the stuff that's like advice for kids is the same as advice for adult, like games with grown-ups. It's just instead of it being at a 5, it's at a 10. Like it's just taking it all the way to the extreme, or like sometimes taking it from a 5 to a 0. Like it's just going to be on the total like sides of the spectrum. So
that's an interesting way to put it. So, you just say like it's either taking it to a 10 or taking it to a 0. What would you say would be a little easy? What's the 0? What's a little easier about
Yeah.
playing these with kids?
So what, like the taking it down a bit, I tend to go really rules light with him. And so that ends up being really nice sometimes. I definitely, like, I can get into the crunch for mechanics with games that I play, and I love it. I love playing, like, an artificer who has a whole bunch of things going on at the same time, and, like, figuring out, like, really strategic ways of doing things and, trying to solve the mystery and all that kind of stuff. But then sometimes it is just nice to focus on the story. And that's one thing that can be really nice with games with kids is a lot of times you reduce some of the crunch because there's only so much like they can track, especially if it's like really young kids, like, mine's 5. And so we focus a lot on the story. And once you get past like my heart is no longer set on a specific storyline, I'm going in with 3 prompts. We're going to see which one he picks and where he takes the story. Once you get to that point, it is amazing to see what kind of world he kind of creates from there. Because we have it's very sandbox, and seeing what he comes up with is absolutely beautiful. We do make it's very jazz. Like, let him like
that sounds about as jazz as jazz can jazz right there.
Yeah. So there's sometimes where I ask him 2 questions to start the game out, and he talks for 10 minutes about his character, the other characters that are in the town, that there is a town, that there's a castle up in the mountains, and that this is happening, that's happening, that's happening. I'm like, okay, cool, you just wrote the entire game for me. So now we're going to go, which plotline do you want? I want to do this one. And so, we go up there, and like, it's amazing. It's helped me to like learn to let go of a lot of things and not have control. And it's kind of a good feeling. Like it was a little nerve-wracking at first, to be honest, but like it helps with like parenting a lot because you can't control everything. And so that's kind of where it's made things easier, both in the game and then also in real life with kind of getting that practice in a fun way.
Yeah, it also sounds like just a really enriching also like thing to have as a parent. Like I remember as a child, my dad didn't play these types of games with me. Fortunately, that was during the was it Satanic Panic, and so he was a little concerned when I started playing Dungeons and Dragons, that game he's been hearing about on the news. But I do remember him actually sitting down with me one time and doing some like puzzles with me and asking me questions and stuff like that. And I remember he actually filmed it. And as a parent, he would go back and watch it like family video time, and even when after I'd gotten married, I'm in my 20s, I'm well moved out. I went over, just stopped off my dad's house, and he was watching this video of me and my sister playing these games. And it was like, oh, Dad, and I could see parents could just like capture these magical moments of their kids coming up with these crazy events and just having them forever,
It is nice nowadays too, when I grew up, this stuff wasn't cool. It was the opposite of cool. Like, you weren't supposed to do it. People didn't like it when you did it. And now it's kind of nice that we live kind of more in a world where everybody's way more accepting of RPGs and stuff. Like, it's mainstream. There's movies of it, and like I really like that.
What does this actually? That's a good point. What does this look like in schools now? What does this look like in child community out there? Like, I mean, outside in, it does seem like it's more popular. But what do kids think of this?
So, at schools, there's a lot more after-school clubs that are popping up, and some of them are huge. Marianne Cullinan, who I've done like a couple talks with, she runs the after-school TTRPG group at her school, and she has like close to 100 kids in it. Like, it's
Oh,
huge.
wow.
It's bigger than the sports teams.
Wow.
And then there's also, like, my local library this past year, because we go to the library maybe, like, once every other week, swap all our books out and everything, started putting up flyers for a D&D club. And it's, like, getting sold out. Like, there's no more spots available because so many people are signing up for it. And they're opening up new tables and looking for GMs and everything. And I'm like, what? I went to a local farmer's market to do a booth for TTRPGKIDS. Yes. And so I had so many people come by. And, like, I wasn't expecting a whole lot. I was just like, it's $10 for a booth. Like, I'm just going to set it up and, like, see what happens. And all these parents are coming by. A librarian came by and was like, oh yeah, I'm starting a group up. Do you have resources? The kids are super into it. It's so awesome. Rewarding. They're, like, asking me questions. They're, like, coming in. They've written, like, stories about their characters. There was somebody from a daycare came by and was, like, asking about it. It's amazing. Wow. Like, anytime that it gets introduced somewhere, it sounds like everyone's just, like, leaping on it and getting super involved. So, like, the demand is exceeding the capacity in a lot of places, which is kind of cool to hear because, like, it's just going to grow then.
Right.
That's so cool to hear. When I was a kid, it was like trying to find an RPG group. Yeah. It was like trying to buy drugs. Like, you'd have to, like, stumble into the lunchroom and be like, hey, I see you're drawing a knight there. Do you know where you can somebody can get some D&D? I'm not necessarily into that, but if I was, do you have a game I could come to? Like, it was so hard to get into back in the day, and now it's just everywhere. It's just so awesome.
Mm-hmm. That is so cool to hear and so cool to see. I think that these games have so much potential. One of the things Zach and I talk a lot about is how welcoming the TTRPG community is. Mm-hmm. Every community, every space has, like, their share of trolls from one way or the other. But both of us walking into the Twitter online community were just like, wait, is this actually Twitter? Because I thought Twitter was, like, a bad place.
It's so nice. And the TTRPG Twitter.
TTRPG Twitter is amazing. I'm sad that I didn't find it earlier. It's led to this, like, revitalization of role-playing games in my life, just in general, and, like, they've been so supportive, like, with the games that I've created and published. Like, it's just, like, I don't know, I just didn't expect that, especially with Twitter. And, like, I had been on Twitter before because this channel started as a video game channel, and now we do both, thanks to Wizards Respite. But that came from TTRPG Twitter, like, just ended up running into him and then slowly finding TTRPG Twitter. And it's just, like, it's like the one pocket of Twitter that is exactly what Twitter was always supposed to be. Like you see all the evil stuff and you're like, no, this is what it was supposed to be. It didn't work out that way, but this right here is like the shining example. It's kind of crazy.
And I've always had a theory is the reason why is because TTRPGs are social games. Mm-hmm. You play them with people, you communicate, you have to sort of interpret how other people are feeling, what they're thinking, you're working together to collaborate towards something. And you're building all of those soft skills. And I could see, it's great seeing this moving into, the school system, basically gamifying a skill that will help them be better human beings their whole life. Yeah. Being emotional and empathic and all of these other soft skills. It's
just being there. It's so hard to find players. Like, back in the day, I didn't have any groups because I didn't know anybody who played. And then I found TTRPG Twitter, and they're literally auditioning people to be in games. And I'm like, this exists. It was amazing. And then now I've got two streaming games, and I'm in 2 other games privately. Like, it's just... I love TTRPG Twitter. I can't speak highly enough about it. Like, I really can't.
Yeah. Let's see. We're talking about this huge explosion. I did want to touch real quick on, I did that article. You were very gracious to help me get into more of an insight as to what the the family genre was really all about, because I was looking at it from a number standpoint, and my numbers were showing pretty obviously that that genre was selling way more than people were writing.
Yeah.
There just weren't enough writers to keep up with the demand. And I mean, if you look at the ratio difference, it was blowing every other genre out of the water, and that ratio. How many people were writing, how many people were selling. It was like, off the top of my head, I think it was 5 times. And the next runner up was only twice as many books sold per written and produced. What do you think that means for the future of this industry? Do you think we're going to start seeing more writers coming into the genre?
For sure. And one of the things that I've like tried to do with TTRPG Kids is to raise awareness about, one, the games are out there, and then 2, we need more of them. Because like having that variety just helps. It gives people more options for games to connect with, more opportunities to find the one that really works for them. And I think that this is going to, like, the data that you're seeing, and then also the community that's building up around it is going to help push more creators to start considering making their content more all ages or like family friendly, so that way it can access that market. When something is all ages friendly, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be for kids. It's just that it's for everybody. It's for kids and adults to enjoy. And a lot of times games that are currently rated for like 13 plus, it could take some really small tweaks and it makes it all ages friendly, without really altering the game too much. So I think a lot more people are going to start paying attention to that and trying to make it more widely accessible to everybody. I've also seen a lot of people working on how to make like a base version of a game, and then also having, this is the rules light version, or here's the kid-friendly stories section of the game. So that way there is like that option. And I think that's amazing. It gives like opportunity for trying that out. An adult finds a game that they really like and they want to share it with their kid, and now they say, okay, well, there's already a rules light parsed down version and a story I can try out with my kid, and they don't have to learn a whole new system or anything.
And vice versa too. If you're playing this with your kid, you discovered it, and you're like, okay, well, maybe my friends group can.
That's one thing gamers love, their systems. You know, like they'll get attached to one system, and it's like that's the system. So if you find a gamer kid, they're gonna want to just advance in that system. So that makes sense, you know.
Being able to play that at age 5 all the way up to 10, and then maybe even in their 20s, and because it advances with them, would be pretty stellar for, I think, just a kid's like course. Like I would have loved that, the nostalgia of that would have been great.
There's a couple that do that. Family Fantasy RPG actually has like a like section 1, section 2, section 3 step progression that introduces, like, there's basically like a story mode, there's some mechanics, there's a little bit more mechanics, and then after that you're all set up to transition into playing full-on D&D 5e. And it works where, let's say you have one kid who is maybe like 4 years old, they're playing at like the first section, and then you have an older kid who's maybe like 8 is playing at the third one. They can play in the game together.
Oh, wow.
So, like, both sets of mechanics like can work in the same story.
That's awesome.
Cool.
That's awesome. I know. That's like level scaling in a video game. That's awesome.
Right, yeah. It gives you that really gradual progression. It makes sure everyone can be included. And then if a grown-up's in the game and they want to play full D&D 5e, it still works. And the stories are all outfitted with like puzzles that are age appropriate and also scale. And like it's awesome.
That's impressive.
So cool.
That definitely changes some very derogatory comments I've made towards D&D on this podcast.
Yeah. Zach is
When we finally have our great debate that we've been building up for 9 episodes, I'm gonna have to take that one off the list.
I'm the D&D fan. Zach is not the D&D fan.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a debate, a challenge against each other on this one at some point.
Yeah.
Are you not entertained?
Gladiator style. But that sounds really cool, and I love the idea of like a whole family from, small children up to teenage kids sitting around the table doing a family activity like playing a game.
It's impressive.
That's really incredible.
It's just impressive that you can have a game where it's simple mechanics over here, complicated mechanics over here, and it all like comes together. That's really impressive. Like TTRPGs in 2023 never cease to they just keep surprising me every time we do it. The last time it was journaling games, now it's this. It just blows me away.
Now I've said myself, and I said multiple times in the article, I'm not sure that I would be the right person to jump into writing these games because I don't have kids. I'm not really around them. But it kind of sounds like, doing at least a rules-light game is a possibility, and then maybe teaming up with somebody who does have kids in the industry to help me really gear it towards the age groups. Might be something worth thinking about.
Yeah, if you've got an idea for something, write it up and then see who wants to playtest. A lot of people are willing to try rules-light games out with their kids in exchange for maybe like a copy of the game. And then give you some feedback for it. And then you've got playtesting then. And it's actually sometimes a lot better to get that feedback from outside of your house.
Yeah.
So, like, I know what works for my kid. But then for, like, if I want to playtest my game, I'm going to play it with my kid, tweak it a little bit and everything. But then I'm going to make sure that before I put it out there for everybody, I'm sending it off to somebody else and getting their opinion as well. And that ends up giving me actually like more real feedback because I don't have my personal bias in there of like, oh, I made this thing. So 100%, you do not have to have kids in order to write a kid-friendly tabletop RPG.
Wow. You've completely changed my perspective on that. I'm going to have to go write an adjustment on my article about that because, I can see now kind of going through this with you, I can really see how that would work. And like I said, when I was doing my article initially, it was an eye-opening discovery, but it was all about, the industry side of things. And now really seeing how this works in the family and school settings, that is just, there's a lot of good, I think, in this genre. There's a lot of good here. So I would like next to dive into what projects you've been working on and kind of get an idea of a big, broad strokes of what you might be looking at towards the future. So, I just saw that you had a crowdfunder sort of conclude. How did that go for you?
The crowdfunder went really well. That was to help TTRPG kids be financially stable for the next year plus like a little bit. So TTRPG Kids is available for free online to everyone. Like I want it to be like we like going to the library. I like having stuff available to everyone. It's not behind a paywall or anything. So I want TTRPG Kids to be that. I don't charge people for writing articles and whatnot because I don't want that to be a barrier to like indie creators. So I know that position myself. So
we all do.
Yeah. Everybody in this podcast.
Yes. So the crowdfunder was to cover, there's site fees. There's like I want to go to conventions and whatnot. So there's travel and booth fees and fees for publishing my work and et cetera, et cetera. So the crowdfunder went great. From community support, I had some people like donated the industry standard rate for an article, which I was like, oh, nobody's going to put that in there. And they did. And the number of people who donated community copies was outstanding. Like, I was like seeing the number tick up. I'm like, oh, my heart. Like, so like that went amazing. The community like really got behind it and concluded at just over 100% funded. So we're
That's
good
awesome.
for we're good for 2024.
Yay.
In terms of site fees, we covered all the 2023 conventions. So it's, it gives me something to work from financially. And project wise, I have like a few projects that I'm working on here and there. I've got like over 50 titles on itch right now. So lots of digital games.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I've got 2.5, and it is hard.
Yeah. It's hard to like. I am great at promoting other people, but I have such a hard time with self promo. So there's a whole bunch of games on there. A lot of them are. There's a whole bunch for pre-K kids that are like social emotional learning stories. But then there's also stuff for all ages. There's these train decks that I'm working on where you have like a deck of prompts. If you know what like Infinity Train is, you're like stuck on this like weird space-time train, and each train car is like totally different, and it's like they're all kind of jumbled up. So I put all on like decks of cards. So there's like a winter holiday themed one. There's like a steampunk one. I'm working on a Halloween one right now. Will be coming out soon.
Just in time for October.
Yeah. So keep an eye out for that. And I'm kind of between things right now. I just went back to teaching. I'm a professor for my day job. And so the semester started last week, and then my kids started in kindergarten in a week and a half. So we're kind of like took a break from like the big projects to just kind of handle the back to school stuff for like the next few weeks. So
take a breath.
Yeah.
Feel your pain. Feel it.
Yeah. Rotate where the efforts are being focused on for a little bit. So
Sometimes the attention has to be on a bit of a merry-go-round there.
Yeah.
And it'll come back when it comes back. But that sounds like some pretty 100%. Exciting projects that you have coming up. I love the idea of that card deck, and I'd love to see that Halloween one come out. That seems like it's perfect and a lot of fun. I think we're getting towards the end of it. Zach, do you have anything?
To plug? I always have things to plug, but I'm good. This was a very interesting conversation. I very much enjoyed talking to you. This was really cool. This is really cool, and I am a father of a 7-year-old who I have not successfully got into RPGs. It's weird too, because I want her to play, but I've noticed like other friends who are.
Does she like cats?
She does like cats. And actually, you said that, the whole Mice and Meowster thing, I'm going to look that up. That'll be the next attempt.
That one. And Magical Kitties Save the Day is another good one. You play as a superpowered cat.
Oh. She has a superpowered cat character that she pretends to be just around the house. So that would.
Yeah, look at Magical Kitties Save the Day. I think she'll like that one. That's another one that like a lot of people have gotten their kids hooked on.
I'm waiting for her to like really get hooked on it before I try and I've talked about it on the podcast before. I have this weird thing where I don't want to like ever force her to do any hobbies.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's always the I have some like nerdier friends who are like, I would never force my kid to play sports, and then they force them to do models with them, and I'm like, maybe they want to play football. Like, that's not up to you. I don't know. If she wants to play football, I'll learn how to play football. Let's go play football. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
So, I never want to force her to. So, we've tried a few times, but I'm in that weird spot where I'm like, I want to push it, but I don't want to push it too hard. So, the Mice and Meowster thing really sounds like I'm going to try that one.
It's storytelling. It's very storytelling based. So, it doesn't feel like it's necessary. It's not a crunchy game at all.
Right.
It's very how would I put it? Very gentle introduction.
Okay. Is that on itch? Is that an itch one?
Yeah, that one's on itch.
Okay.
I will actually, I'll drop a link.
Well, I would appreciate
after we're
that
done
quite
talking,
a bit.
so I'll send you a link to it.
Yeah, it's also well, it's bittersweet for her, not for us, because we're not cat people. But she's allergic to cats, so like,
No.
yeah, so she's obsessed with them. What's funny is she fights with us about it. Like, even though she breaks out every time she pets a cat, she'll be like, "I'm not allergic to cats." I'm like, "You are literally allergic to cats." Like, it's a physical thing that happens. Your mother's allergic to cats. You're allergic to cats. It's just, I'm sorry. It's just the way it shook out. Like, we have a dog. You're gonna have to be okay with that.
Oh, now she can maybe find a way of living
the cat life. Yeah.
With the cat, yeah.
The cat life. Thank you. I appreciate it. But I found this really interesting. I've often kind of wondered about creating a family game. It definitely gave me more insight. Mainly, one of the Wiz told me to make one because I was making other games. And he was like, "Nobody's making them. Make one." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll try that." I don't know, but like,
you have a playtester.
Yeah,
you have a playtester.
Yeah,
I do, but she, like, that's the problem. Like, she doesn't really want to, so it's like, all right, I don't even know if this is in the ballpark of good, but it would be interesting to like loan it out to some other parents to see what they say about it too. And that the system that I'm working on right now, Wizard has played, and I feel could be dumbed down really fast, or made to be more rules light, really easily, so I don't know. But thank you. I really appreciate you being here. This was really interesting to me.
Thanks for having me on. It was good chatting with you both. So this was good.
Yeah, again, thank you for me as well. It was great having you back on. Thank you again for the help that you did with my article a few months back. I'm really excited about this branch of the hobby. I think it's doing really good things in the world, which is one of the biggest reasons why I'm excited about this. I think it's really helping a lot of families and kids in a lot of different ways, and teachers. And now I've learned more about how it's helping. So thank you for coming and helping both of us sort of open our eyes more to this hobby, and bringing your expertise here. So before we kind of wrap up, do you have anything you'd like to plug for your games? Anything you want us to shout out?
Mostly just check out TTRPGKIDS.com. It's all one word. There's tips and tricks. There's reviews of games. There's featured projects for a lot of indie creators that highlight their work. I talk about like my personal experience with games with my kid. Usually there's like some funny stories. Like on the site, search volcano, and there's probably like 3 articles where I mention the volcano story because it's too good, and stuff like that. So TTRPGKIDS.com. Please use it. I put a lot of work into it, and I would love to have as many people as possible using it and learning from it and it having an impact. So that's my big plug. And if you want to check out some of my games, they're on my itch. If you look up TTRPG Kids on itch, like I'm just TTRPG Kids everywhere. So I'm on probably too many social media channels. So Twitter. Yeah, so
one is too many.
TTRPG Kids, I'm probably there somewhere. So yeah. But cool. I'd love to connect with more people, and yeah, it was great talking to you, and thank you for having me on. So
yeah, it was great talking to you too, and we really again appreciate you being here. It was really, I really personally found it very eye-opening. I learned a lot in this conversation. That was fantastic. I guess real quick rollout. Zach, did you want to do any real quick plugs?
I'm not going to go overboard with the plugs. You guys can check out everything I have to offer here at Old Man Gaming. I do want to plug one thing just because it's on brand with kids. It's a video game thing, so forgive me, but the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles DLC is coming out. I'm actually going to stream it with my daughter on
Cool.
Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. If anybody wants to check in out there, just come in and say hi. It will literally make her day because she constantly asks me to be a YouTuber. And I'm like, no, you have to be older. You have to at least be able to read and edit your own videos because I can't do that for you. I got to do my own. But yeah, she's really excited about it. So that's something I'd like to plug here. Other than that, you guys can check out everything we have to offer on the channel, whether it be TTRPG or video game. We have plenty of actual plays, plenty of Let's Plays, plenty of all sorts of plays. And I will make sure that TTRPGs.com is in the description of the YouTube video for this video on Old Man Gaming. So you guys can go down and click on the thing to go to the wonderful webpage.
And for me, as always, Wizard's Respite, this video and all of our other Sanctorums will be on there. We'll also have a link to the other article on the website that Steph helped me with, kind of diving into the more marketing side of this industry. Again, Steph, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was just a great experience. I really appreciate you. You're excellent. Couldn't have asked for a better first interview ever.
Yeah, thank you so much. Celebrity in our midst.
Honor.
Yeah.
My honor to be here. So.
Well, I think that's a wrap then. Well, if you're watching this, thank you very much, and we'll catch you again in another 2 weeks.
Okay.